Now, South Africa is now ranked at one of the top 10 most unattractive mining countries in the world. This is a blow to the country's hopes of using the sector to attract much-needed investment. Stakeholders are gathered in Cape Town for the annual mining Indaba. For more on this, we're joined by Althea Soobyah, who's the director at the international auditing firm Mazars. Thank you so much, Althea, for your time here on All Angles. I just want to start with, what people have been complaining about. The red tape, the bureaucracy for mining companies to, for instance, get licenses for water, etc. How important is it for the president and the presidency to fast track the removing of these bureaucracies?
Thanks, Mazars. Nice to be on your show today. I mean, we've heard many stakeholders speak about the backlogs and the red tape surrounding the mining industry and having to procure mining licenses and how that affects the mining industry. But we've also heard that the impact of the mining industry and how it contributes to the economy and the revenues collected from a tax perspective. And this red tape contributes to that. It contributes to the delay in the collection of revenues. And that with the crisis we're seeing with the rails and roads and transport systems, it also affects the costs that mining companies incur in having to procure this revenue. So it does affect it from all angles. And if we want it to be a capital investment type of planning situation, then we need initiatives to support the mining industry to get over those hurdles to generate the revenues that we need for the economy, to drive the economy.
And I mean, during the budget speech this year, the finance minister said that mining companies must contribute 20% towards tax of whatever money they make, right? How will this affect the mining companies, and are they prepared? Will they be able to do that?
Like all other companies, it's important that we're able to support those business initiatives. And usually there's incentives in the tax regime that help them, particularly in the mining industry with the capital expenditure regimes, to offset capital expenditure, because we know it's capital intensive. And we know that to a certain extent, they've already contributed 20%. The markets are volatile. It depends on the demand for commodities in this particular sector. So in order to ensure that it's a sustainable revenue generation stream for the economy, we need to make sure that we support that by putting in place proper initiatives, by making sure that refunds are paid out efficiently to enable business to continue. So it's important that there is a proper, sustainable and system in place to support the industry, to support the mining industry, to ensure that they create that sustainability for the economy.
And although, you look at the fact that, South Africa has always, our mining industry before now, of course, with this report, it has always been seen as an industry that is growing. But of course, it faces challenges every year, protracted strikes. We've got Sibanye Stillwater right now going through that, and contracted mine workers also saying that they need permanent jobs. And of course, you can imagine how people do need that increase. I mean, 1,000 rand is nothing, compared to how much more expensive life is right now. So I'm assuming that also contributes to us now being named one of the 10 worst countries to actually operate mining.
Absolutely, and that's fueled by, how easy is it to do business in South Africa in particular. How one of the contributing factors is how easy is it to get your audits finalized through the process, and how quickly can I get a diesel rebate and a refund from SARS without having to jump through hurdles. SARS is often binds us in terms of the timelines that we need to respond as taxpayers to their queries, and it's it's not really responsible on SARS's part to take unnecessarily prolonged steps to not pay out refunds, because it does affect business. And I think those are the key factors in looking at ways in which we can increase efficiencies to get businesses to actually operate in that sector. And you spoke about contract mining, for example. It's always been a burning issue as to whether contract miners should get the same benefits under the mining tax regime, whether they should be benefiting from the capital expenditure incentives that are earmarked specifically for mining companies. And it's always been a bone of contention. And this is also delayed further by procuring mining rights, transferring of mining rights, conversion of mining rights, and the delays that is experienced from that perspective as well. So with that said, SARS is often amenable to looking at the different scenarios, and we've seen it happen through the advanced tax rulings regime, where they've issued rulings in the past to allow for the delays in contract mining situations, where companies entered into these types of arrangements to ensure that they were able to mine in terms of the regulatory frameworks associated with that.
And just lastly, you mentioned diesel. This is something that has been increasing. The price of diesel increased again this month while petrol went down. How does this affect the mining industry? It might look like something small, but I think it does definitely affect the industry and the companies in the industry.
It certainly does from an expense perspective, and to try and get that rebate back from SARS. In a recent Supreme Court of Appeal judgment that was handed down, there was a focus on whether or not mining companies, what constitutes primary mining activities, and it seems limited in the sense that any other beneficiation activities around the mining is not seen as a primary activity, and diesel rebates won't be paid if it's not considered a primary mining activity. So that further hampers and has an impact on how we look at getting a rebate through the diesel rebate scheme on especially with the increase in prices with diesel and how it affects the consumption levels, and mining's being dependent on diesel to operate, essentially. So those are factors that certainly does have an impact on the industry.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time here on All Angles. That was Althea Soobyah, who's the director at international auditing firm Mazars.